Good evening, everybody. What a fantastic meal, what a fantastic venue. Once again, I'd just like to echo the thanks that Gav gave earlier about all the fantastic support we've had from everybody in Estoril, in Cascais, from the Portuguese IP office. We're delighted to have such distinguished guests with us from national and international patent offices. This has been a truly wonderful start to the IPBC, and we hope to carry that on now with the inductions into this year's IP Hall of Fame. The point about the IP Hall of Fame is that very often, as we discussed today, the debate around IP is all about big faceless corporations doing things to people and making decisions that are seen as negative. We all understand that actually intellectual property is a very powerful force for good, that intellectual property creates jobs, builds economies, it saves lives, it enhances lives. And we think that that should be celebrated. And one of the ways to celebrate it is to actually say, this isn't some abstract concept. This is all about individuals making decisions that mean we create a system that allows innovation, that facilitates creativity, that helps consumers make choices. And it's individuals that have helped create that system. And we want to honour some of the individuals that have made an extraordinary contribution to the development of the IP system that we have today. And that's what the IP Hall of Fame is all about. This is about people that have dedicated their professional careers to creating an intellectual property system that facilitates good. So what we do on IAM each year is in October we send out an invitation to the global IP community, to patent attorneys, to patent lawyers, to people working in-house, to intermediaries, to the financial community, and we ask them to nominate people who they believe have made an outstanding contribution to the development of today's IP system. We don't just ask them to provide a name, we ask them to provide a name and a reason for the nomination, so a supporting paragraph of about 150 words saying this is why we think this person should be inducted into the IP Hall of Fame. That's a process that lasts about 6 weeks to 2 months. We then collate the many hundreds of nominations that we receive, and it is many hundreds, and having eliminated some of the more self-promotional efforts, we then put all the nominations together and send them to the IP Hall of Fame Academy. The IP Hall of Fame Academy is a group of people, it's about 40 people, comprising all the living members, all the living inductees into the IP Hall of Fame from previous years, plus a selection of globally recognised IP leaders. And it's the Academy that makes the final decision. So IAM is actually we facilitate the process, but we don't actually have a say in who is chosen. First of all, you get the nominations from the global IP community, then the IP Hall of Fame Academy makes the final decision. We ask Academy members to choose up to 5 people, and so each Academy member gets 5 votes, and the nominees that receive the most votes each year are the people that we induct. Normally we go for 5 people. We would have done that this year, but actually there was a tie on some of the votes, and so this year we've gone for 6. But everyone who's been inducted today has received substantial numbers of nominations from the IP community and substantial numbers of votes from the IP Hall of Fame Academy. So it really is a tremendous achievement to be inducted into the IP Hall of Fame. And at this stage, I'd like to thank Academy members for spending the time they do going through the nomination papers, because we're not talking about an A4 list of names, we're talking about many pages and thousands of words to go through. And Academy members take their responsibilities very seriously, and they do go through those, and they do make very considered choices as to who they think should be included in the IP Hall of Fame. So having explained the process and having explained the reasons why we do it, I would now like to tell you about the 6 people that are inducted into the IP Hall of Fame for 2012. And the first person inducted into the IP Hall of Fame in 2012 is Beatrix de Rousset, who is Head of IP and Licensing at Technicolor. She's been with the company since 1976 and originally joined it as an international contract lawyer. She then switched into the IP department, and she has been leading the IP and licensing function at what is now Technicolor, was previously Thomson, for many years. And during that time, she's built up a licensing operation, which is now among the biggest revenue generators of any licensing operation in the world. And she's built a team that now is 200 people in centres in various continents around the world. And Beatrix de Rousset is the first inductee into the IP Hall of Fame for 2012. The second inductee into the IP Hall of Fame for 2012 is Q. Todd Dickinson, who is currently the Executive Director of the American Intellectual Property Law Association. During his long career in intellectual property, Q. Todd Dickinson has worked in-house as head of IP at General Electric and in private practice as a senior partner in the IP group of Howry. He has also held office in the US government and was the Undersecretary of Commerce for Intellectual Property and Director of the United States Patent and Trademark Office during the presidency of Bill Clinton. As the current Executive Director of the American Intellectual Property Law Association, he continues to be a driving influence in US IP policymaking. And Q. Todd Dickinson is the second inductee into the IP Hall of Fame for 2012. The third inductee into the IP Hall of Fame for 2012 is Alan Drewson. He is the Executive Director of the International Trademarks Association. He has been Executive Director of the INTA since 1996 and is credited with greatly increasing the profile of the organisation. During his tenure, INTA has grown to become a truly global operation with offices in Shanghai and Brussels, as well as in the United States. INTA now has members drawn from 190 countries across the world and is recognised for its lobbying activities in advocating trademark rights across the globe. Before taking up his role at INTA, Mr. Drewson worked as a litigator and an antitrust lawyer, and also worked in-house as General Counsel for Blue Cross and Shield Insurance Group. And Alan Drewson is the third inductee into the IP Hall of Fame for 2012. The fourth inductee into the IP Hall of Fame 2012 is David Kapos. Mr. Kapos is currently Undersecretary of Commerce for Intellectual Property and Director of the United States Patent and Trademark Office. In his current role, Mr. Kapos has overseen the introduction of the America Invents Act, probably the biggest change in patent law in the United States since the 19th century. Since taking up his role in 2009, Mr. Kapos has also overseen significant improvements to the USPTO's internal processes and is working hard on reducing the application backlog and raising the quality of patent grants from the USPTO. Before joining the office, he was Vice President and Assistant General Counsel for Intellectual Property at IBM. And David Kapos is the fourth inductee into the IP Hall of Fame for 2012. The fifth inductee into the IP Hall of Fame for 2012 is J. Thomas McCarthy. He is a professor at the University of San Francisco and one of the world's foremost authors and experts on trademark law. His treatise, McCarthy on Trademarks and Unfair Competition, was first published in 1973, and since that time, it has been cited in over 2,000 judicial opinions. The current edition of the book runs to 7 volumes. Professor McCarthy was a faculty member of the University of San Francisco for 36 years and was honoured by the university when it named the McCarthy Institute for Intellectual Property and Technology after him. And J. Thomas McCarthy is the 5th inductee into the IP Hall of Fame for 2012. The 6th and final inductee into the IP Hall of Fame for 2012 is Mary Beth Peters, the former US Registrar of Copyrights. For 17 years, until her retirement in 2010, Mary Beth Peters was the US Registrar of Copyrights, the second longest tenure in the office's history. She first joined the Office of Copyrights in 1966 and served there for over 40 years altogether in a number of positions. Among her many achievements, Ms. Peters was responsible for driving the introduction of electronic filing across the office. She is also the author of the General Guide to the Copyright Act of 1976, a publication that not only became the Bible of copyright practice in the United States, but also has been used by practitioners across the world. And Mary Beth Peters is the 6th and final inductee into the IP Hall of Fame for 2012. I'm very pleased to say we actually have 3 of the inductees with us tonight, and we're going to be, if I could now ask David Brown to come up on stage again. Mr. Brown is the president of the IP Solutions business at Thomson Reuters, and he will be presenting induction certificates to the 3 inductees that are with us this evening. And first of all, I'd like to call up on stage Beatrix de Rousset, Head of IP and Licensing at Technicolor.
Well, first of all, I'm very tempted to do my speech in French. But I'm not going to do it in French if you forgive my French accent. So I must say that when I was informed by IAM that I was chosen as an inductee for the IP Hall of Fame, I was very surprised. My first reaction was a deep surprise. And then other feelings came, and pride was the second feeling. And why pride? Not so much for myself, but for all my team. And I think I don't specially deserve this honor, but I am sure that my IP and licensing team, unfortunately none of them is here tonight, deserves the honor much more than I do. So we deserve the honor collectively, let's say. So I want, of course, to thank, first of all, IAM and the Academy of the IP Hall of Fame. They represent the, as we say in French, the gratin, I mean the cream, I mean the top of IP experts in the world. And I am very, very honored to be part of them now, and in the company of very, very prestigious new inductees as well. And by the way, I'm very glad that I speak before David Kapos, because otherwise you would have compared my accent to his, and it would not have been in my favor. So I am especially honored to be the first, I think, as far as I know, first French inductee. As you may know, France is not very famous for love of IP. Every time we have to pass a law, every time we have to adopt an international regulation or law, there are a lot of political debates. Shall we do it, not do it, and so on. Finally, the laws are passed usually, but it's always very long. But French authorities do not mind the licensing income which is represented by Technicolor. Technicolor, I am very proud of that, brings to the French trade balance to 450 million euros per year. So I must say that our success is probably very instrumental in having France recognize the value of IP. I was not really born in IP. I was, I would say, an international contract lawyer, as Geoff said, for a while, and I mainly negotiated very frustrating agreements with turnkey contracts, which were very popular at the time, so you did a great job at preparing documents and so on, and for political reasons, they were never achieved, except one. We built at the time a factory in Iraq, which was the first thing that the Israelis destroyed when they launched the war against Iraq. So frustrating, and for one there was success, but it was destroyed immediately. So I've always been, as Geoff said, in the Thomson Group, first in the defense part, now Thales, then in the component semiconductor parts, now ST Microelectronics, and then in the consumer electronics part, which is now Technicolor, after having been called Thomson for a while. Why Technicolor? Only because we purchased this company in 2001, and our new management decided that they wanted to take the name of something prestigious name in Hollywood. But we are still, our heart is still Thomson. And by the way, my licensing company is called Thomson Licensing. How did I happen to fall into IP? When I was at Thomson Components, we purchased a company called Mostec from Texas. And after this purchase, we did due diligence, of course. There were a few patents. We were approached by a company asking to purchase a few patents. So, of course, we didn't sell those patents, but we reviewed them carefully, and they happened to be essential patents for DRAM, dynamic random access memories. And we launched a licensing program based on these patents. It was a tremendous success, and we recovered more than 10 times the price of purchase of Mostec. So I thought that it was good to continue in IP. And when I joined Thomson Consumer Electronics at the time in 1993, as the head of the licensing department, it was a very small department. 8 people, 3 negotiators plus me, plus 4 patent attorneys. Then I was really immersed in IP from that date. And I am very proud to say that I'm not going to tell you the whole story of IP at Thomson and RCA. It can last for the whole evening, and I'm not sure you want to listen to that. But we grew from 8 people in 1993 to around 220 people now, and from an income of something like 400 million French francs at the time, combined RCA and Thomson, to, that's about 70 million euros, to now a licensing revenue of 451 million euros in 2011. So a major achievement. Few words about my organization. So I'm very proud of this organization. I have a lot of patent attorneys who are located in Europe, US, China, and Japan. A lot of licensing negotiators also, mostly in Europe and in the US. Licensing liaison offices in Asia, business development team also in Europe and US, and something very special, which is a team of engineers who do reverse engineering of the manufacturer's products. So they are all very dedicated experts, very good experts, high-level IP experts, and I want here to thank them. Well, French people in the audience will convey to them my thanks for the success of our organization. So, of course, we file patents for licensing purposes, for strategic purposes, for business objectives, and we are involved in all the transactions of the company involving IP, which are many acquisition, divestitures, mergers, and so on. And monitoring, by the way, you are going to ask what has become of the Thomson and RCA brands, where we are licensing them actively, and now you continue to see them on products everywhere in the world. So, as a conclusion, I hope I have not been too long. I want to thank you again for including me in this prestigious IP Hall of Fame, and to state again how honored I am and proud for my team, mainly for my Technicolor IP and licensing team. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Beatrix. And the next inductee, who I'm very pleased to call up onto the stage, is Q. Todd Dickinson, who is currently Executive Director of the American Intellectual Property Law Association. Mr. Dickinson.
First of all, thank you to everyone, but particularly to IAM and the whole team there and at Thompson for sponsoring this event and this organization. I'm very honored. I've actually been a member of the IP Academy since it was founded, and so I have the privilege every year to vote on who gets admitted. So when they told me this year there was a tie vote at the very end, I was a little worried because you're not allowed to vote for yourself. And so I'm not quite sure how it all came out, but hopefully it came out all right. I'm also honored to be inducted with such a great class of inductees. I know all of them. I know many of them very well, and personally, contrast a little bit. I was talking to Marshall Phelps, who's been inducted a few years ago, and he was a little concerned because he was inducted with Thomas Jefferson and James Madison and other people, and I said, Marshall, I swear you went to college with those guys. But no, he said no, they were not. But I'm pleased to have been a member with this group. Tom and Beatrix I've known for a long time. Alan Drewson started at INTA the year that I started at the PTO. And so we've kind of grown up together, as well as Mary Beth, who I worked with very closely when she was the copyright registrar as well. But I wanted to mention one person in particular who's going to follow me, and that's Dave Kapos, who's I've had the great honor to have worked with for a long time in the private sector when our respective general counsels insisted we try to settle many years ago issues related to the current legislation that turned into AIA. We worked together on boards together. One small story. An older colleague, in Washington, D.C., there's a lot of folks who've done IP for many years, and a great guy named John Witherspoon is a professor and a teacher and a longtime fellow in D.C. came up to me a few weeks ago, and he said, you know, Ton, I've told you this many times. I thought you were the best commissioner, the best #1 director we've ever had in the United States. He said, I'm changing a little bit. I think you may be #2 now to Dave Kapos. So nothing pleases me more, candidly and frankly, than to be honored tonight with Dave. As I think a lot of speakers today in the program noted, and also tonight noted, this is a really critical and many important, in innumerable important ways, time for intellectual property. I've been at this for 30 years, as many of you have. I'm kind of riding a wave in a way. I didn't expect this when I came into it, and I'm just grateful to have been a part of it over time. But we now still find ourselves at this inflection point, at this particular point in time. It's a great source of pride for me that I've been able to be a part of some of these decisions. I wish I would be able to claim that I was prescient about it back when I started my career as an undergraduate in college. But we find ourselves, as I said, at a very important time. We're not done, is I guess the message that I'd had. This year may go down in many ways, the last 12, 18 months, as the most significant year in IP in a century. Seriously. If you consider what's happened in the IA and the changes that we've had there, if you consider the huge growth that was noted before in terms of China and Chinese filings, both domestically and internationally, if you consider the huge wave of monetization. And the most interesting comment I heard all day today was maybe the trolls have done some good in terms of how people monetize IP. And the fact that this week, at some point here in Europe, somebody is going to make the decision about whether we have a EU patent and an EU patent court. This year could go down as probably in many ways, the single most important year. And it's fascinating, I think, to realize that. But there's still one more job I think that needs to be done. And I'm going to probably steal a little bit of Director Kapos' thunder, if he'll let me. But that is, I think, the issue of international patent harmonization. We have been at this I've personally been at this for almost 20 years, many at it way longer than that, trying to figure out how to bring one system that everybody agrees should be into harmonization. And I'll put out a bit of a challenge because I'm going to turn 60 this year, so I guess I can pass it on a bit. This is a generational issue. This is a legacy issue for the generation of IP leaders who frankly are in this room, many of them. This is your Paris Convention, this is your PCT, this is your TRIPS. To take on this huge challenge of international harmonization, we haven't had a decent IP treaty in the last 20 years. We had 6 of them in a 5-year period in the 90s, and not one since. So I think we have a great opportunity. The AIA has given us that chance, in large part. The Koreans and the Japanese, and moving towards the grace period, have done that. The very positive comments, for example, from President Battistelli today about grace period and harmonization issues give us an opportunity. But let's move forward. It's a matter not only of substantive law, which I think we could probably all go off to the corner and figure out in about 20 minutes. It's a matter of political will. It's a matter of finding the common ground that we know we can find, and it's a matter of letting the next generation get to that greater place, I think, that we all need to be. I'm very proud and thankful of the small piece I played. I'm very proud, thank you, to you all for letting me be here tonight. And I guess my final job is, my final suggestion is let's finish the job. So thank you, John.
And if I could now call the final inductee we have with us tonight, and that's David Kapos, Undersecretary of Commerce for Intellectual Property and Director of the USPTO.
Well, good evening. This is one of those situations where everything that needs to be said perhaps has been said, but not quite everyone has said it yet. So I'll follow the great comments of my friend Todd Dickinson of Beatrix, who came just before, and just add a few little remarks here. Start by saying thank you so much to the IAM folks and to Thomson Reuters. You are doing something that really needs to be done. You know, there's a saying, you are what you eat, where there's another saying, you are what you celebrate. And there's not anywhere near enough celebration that goes on of the intellectual property system. Joff mentioned this a little bit earlier. As a society, as a community, we need a lot more celebration of intellectual property, of the greatness of innovation, and I am so pleased. So set aside the, at least this particular awardee for tonight for a moment, and I will say that what IAM and Thomson Reuters is doing here is very, very important, because celebrating intellectual property is about at the very top of what is needed in order to raise the level of the system. We heard a lot about that today. Second thing that I would say is to thank my colleagues at the USPTO. So this kind of award is a huge honor, and thank you so much. I'm very pleased to be here and very honored to be able to accept this award, but I fully recognize that it comes about, as Beatrix mentioned, as a kind of a team accomplishment. Getting big things done, as we've all gotten done, all 6 awardees tonight, is about marshaling the resources of large teams. It's about working with lots of other people in complex enterprises across complex systems, and it's really about teamwork. And so we are all here tonight because we are team players, we benefit from teamwork, and we have teams that support us and get a lot done. So very important thought for me to leave you all with is that, certainly speaking for the United States Patent and Trademark Office, we have a pretty fine team in place, and I am really lucky to be able to represent and work with and count the USPTO team as colleagues. The last thing that I would mention in terms of thanks, and by far the most important, is my wife Leslie, who's here tonight and is the person that gets and is the person who gets all the really hard work done around our household that enables me to put significant energy into the USPTO. So the last thing I'll say, and then I will stop, is to follow on to Executive Director Dickinson's comments. And thank you so much, Todd, for those kind words. I will reciprocate by saying that in anything we do that's big, we stand on the shoulders of the giants that came before us. And Todd, indeed, is one of those giants, is a person who I rely on, many of us in the U.S. government and in U.S. IP circles rely on day in and day out to help provide the stewardship that guides our hopefully good policy making. So if we're accomplishing anything, it's because of the people that we have working with us and supporting us, and Executive Director Dickinson is the very, very top of that list. The last thing that I would say, following on also, is that we do have a generational opportunity here. Even as we have been gathered here in Portugal these last few days, a quiet team, perhaps not so quiet, over 700 people, was gathered in rainy Beijing, China, working on the very first norm setting to come out of WIPO in that generation, since Executive Director Dickinson mentioned that last norm setting was accomplished. And they have indeed successfully concluded a major treaty, the Audiovisual Performers' Rights Treaty, that will now become the beginning of what I hope will be, as Todd mentions, the next generation carrying on the legacy, and all of us in this room as this generation of leaders doing really good things, really great things to take the intellectual property system to the next level. So Joff and Dave, IAM and Thomson Reuters, thanks again so much for celebrating innovation.
And that concludes this year's IP Hall of Fame induction ceremony. Once again, thank you very much to all the inductees and to Thomson Reuters. I will now leave you to enjoy your desserts and then the performance from Carmenio. Thank you very much.